Hello, in today's video, I want to talk about a situation where I made a mistake. However, this video is not meant to criticize or ridicule other people. Rather, it is my own reflection on what went wrong so that I can do better in the future. But today, I want to share it with you so that others can learn from it. Who knows, maybe you can learn from your mistakes too. But also exciting. I hope you can enjoy my new experiment and learn something from it at the same time. So, I'll take enough time and tell you in detail what I did wrong and what I could do better in the future. Hopefully, this video will be an inspiring experience that teaches both me and you something new. So, stay healthy and don't be afraid to admit your mistakes and learn from them. See you soon. Hello friends, in today's video, I'll be talking about a situation that happened to me and from which one can learn. Specifically, when you meet someone new, it's natural to be interested in them and ask questions, but it's important to understand when enough is enough. If a person starts feeling uncomfortable or disturbed, it may mean that you have crossed their boundaries. Today, I'll tell you a story about how I communicated with my new acquaintance and what I learned from it. Remember that communication requires balance, respect, and empathy. I hope my experience will give you new knowledge and help you avoid similar situations in the future. So, let me start. My communication with this girl was effective and balanced at first, but later it became one-sided and intrusive. It's important to remember that all people are different and have different interests and experiences. It's important to start with their boundaries and needs, and not impose anything on them. Here are some examples of violated and respected boundaries and how people deal with them. Violated boundaries. If someone does something to you that you don't want, such as physically approaching you too much or forcing you to do something you don't want to do. For example, of course, I understand that the meeting is important, but are you sure you didn't push too hard? I mean, it's only the first day, maybe you could leave some room for her own initiatives too. Maybe she's thinking right now, is he too intrusive or something? Or even worse, is he crazy or something? But don't worry, we'll get over it. We're all a little foolish sometimes. If someone tries to force you to say or do something that makes you uncomfortable or goes against your beliefs and values. For example, I might have asked too many personal questions, and I personally think those were normal questions. If someone gives you too much attention or stalks you too closely, making you uncomfortable. For example, oh, I know that feeling. Like you want to put all your cards on the table on the first date and say, yes, I'm crazy about you and want to spend all my time with you. But unfortunately, such behavior can sometimes be a bit scary. As they say, slow and steady wins the race. Maybe it's better to let the relationship develop naturally, without putting too much pressure on it. Or who knows, maybe you're just the type to move quickly. If so, you can always try to change your behavior and hold back a bit to give the other person time to breathe. Respectful boundaries. If someone asks you if you're willing to do something and you clearly indicate that you don't want to do it, then that person respects your boundaries. Oh, I remember that situation. He said ask, but I thought hurry, so that part got confused. But I think in that case, I should just admit the truth. I was so excited that he was willing to answer my questions that I couldn't control my excitement. But really, if someone asks me to do something I don't want to do, I just say, no, I don't twist words. Let's respect each other's boundaries and take life easy, right? If someone tells you something you don't want to hear and you indicate it, that person respects your boundaries. There wasn't really this moment. He answered all my questions at first, but at the end, where the question was, what is your favorite food? Everything started to go downhill until I got to the question of whether you would be willing to meet with me. Entirely up to you. But instead, I got blocked a few seconds later. If someone asks you personal questions and you don't want to answer, that person respects your boundaries. There wasn't really this moment when he told me he didn't want to answer, so again, for me, it was unclear when I should have known when he didn't want to communicate with me. Even though he answered all my questions, don't think I didn't answer anything myself. I also answered all those questions from my side. It was also a bit weird that he didn't ask me anything, but maybe next time will be better. It is important for people to be able to respect and express their boundaries, as well as to communicate skillfully and understand when their boundaries have been crossed or not respected. This helps to create healthy and mutually respectful relationships. People can violate others' boundaries in communication in various ways, such as asking questions that are too personal or inappropriate, ignoring others' demands and desires, sharing private information without permission, or unwanted physical contact. To improve the situation, it is important to understand why boundaries have been violated and to use empathy and respect to avoid further problems. It is important to understand that balance is necessary in communication. This means that while it is important to be curious and interested in other people, it is also necessary to respect their boundaries and needs. Here are some practical tips. Ask appropriate questions at the right time. If you want to know something about another person, ask questions that are appropriate and not too personal. It is also important to ask these questions at the right time. For example, it is not good to ask too personal questions on the first meeting. Listen to the other person actively and respectfully. When you have asked the question, listen carefully to what the other person answers. Do not focus only on your questions, but also listen to the other person's story. Show that you care about the other person's feelings and respect their boundaries. If you notice that your questions become too personal or annoying, be prepared to take a step back and let the other person talk about themselves if they want to. Do not forget the element of humor. While respect and empathy are important in communication, basic humor can help break the ice and create a positive attitude. Regarding the text I have written, it already provides good advice for respecting boundaries in communication. It is important to notice other people's reactions and behavior and act accordingly. It is also important to understand that balance is necessary in communication, and respect for other people's boundaries is always important. Finally, I always recommend keeping in mind that communication is a two-way activity. It is important to be open and listen to the other person, but it is also important to express your own boundaries and let others know when it is enough. Your opinion about the article is also important, and sharing your experience that it is important to be human in communication and not behave like a robot. I also recommend reviewing your questions and focusing on active listening and taking a step back if necessary. Finally, it is important to remember that while this topic is serious, communication should be natural and open. In my opinion, the easiest, but possibly the hardest thing is to approach someone in the place where you are most frequent. Then you already have something in common with them, and it seems a bit more natural, etc. But if you want a long-term relationship, ask questions like, do you go to parties often? How is your relationship with your family? And do you use your phone too much? This is for your own benefit, as they may simply not be interested in you. And if a person is interested in you, it should be a visible activity where both parties look each other in the eye/answer more than yes/no, and ask something of you. It's not all one-sided. What I found on the internet about my actions. If a girl called you a blood-sucking vampire after you asked her too many questions, it could mean that you probably crossed her boundaries. Perhaps she felt uncomfortable or annoyed having to answer constant questions. If you want to avoid similar situations in the future, it's important to understand that communication requires balance. While it's important to be curious and interested in other people, it's also important to respect their boundaries and needs. Therefore, when asking questions, make sure they are not too personal, that they are appropriate and timely. If the girl responded sharply or said something rude to you, it's important to take a moment and understand why she reacted that way. Perhaps she was tired or stressed and your questions became too much. If you want to communicate with someone, it's important to show that you care about their feelings and respect their boundaries. If you notice that your questions become too personal or annoying, it's better to take a step back and let the other person talk about themselves if they want to. It's also important to actively listen to the other person and not just focus on your own questions. In conclusion, communication requires balance and respect for other people's boundaries and needs. Ask appropriate questions at the appropriate time and listen to the other person actively and respectfully. If someone reacts sharply or rudely, understand why it may have happened and take a step back if necessary. Focus on empathy, respect, and balance in communication and avoid situations where someone may call you a blood-sucking vampire. Hello, if you've made it to the end of the video. In this story, I emphasize that it was a 3-hour conversation with the opposite sex, and I would like to ask my viewers if they would like to see more of these types of videos where I talk about my new experiences, what I have learned, and how I want to find a long-term relationship by learning from my mistakes. I would like you as viewers to leave your comments under the video and ask if this type of content would be interesting to you and if you would like to see me doing something else. Who really seemed like who I was looking for / development is important after this. Means that I am willing to develop myself and learn new things to find the right partner for me. Will there be girl number 2? I will hope to see her soon. Have a good day.